Hey everyone, it's Liz from Blue and Hazel, and today I want to share with you an update of how the Gather Round U.S. history has gone for us. So we did U.S. History 1 probably over the last 6 weeks. There's 20 lessons inside, and we did Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just want to share what it has been like and if we liked it, and if you're unfamiliar with Gather Round, I'll explain a little bit more about how it works and especially how you can make it work for your family if you're not using the Gather Round the way that it is supposed to be used, which is it's designed to be all of your family subjects for all ages. And then you would have like a teacher's guide, which I have here. And then each child would have their own notebooks at their level. So for instance, my third grader had early elementary. I printed that for him. And then my second grader had early reader. We had actually already finished Beautiful Feet books, Early American History, which I love, 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 love. I highly recommend. And we will be going back to Beautiful Feet books for All Around the World and picture books when we're done with Gather Round. It's probably going to take us the whole year to finish, if we go that pace, to finish all 6 units. And I know a lot of people who go a lot slower, and they do more in between each lesson. Like they'll do more art projects, or they'll stop and pause and go get library books on a subject they're really interested in. And so you can really make this last a long time, and that could happen for us, and it could just stretch out. For instance, like I kind of want to pause before we go to US History 2 and start to really dig deeper on some Indigenous Americans in our area and their history, maybe try to seek out a museum, get some more picture books from the library, and possibly even visit a powwow. I just think it would be fun to really dig deep in there, and you have the ability to do that with this curriculum. So we started with Beautiful Feet books when my oldest was in first grade. We did all of that and loved it, and then when he got to second grade and I had a first and second grader, we had a baby that year, and I had a preschooler that year. And really just our history kind of just went on like pause. We really did the bare minimum last year just with the newborn baby. What I did, which I actually really liked as well, is I just went and got the America's Story 1 by Masterbooks, and I really liked it. I read it from the couch, and I kept the book in our morning basket, and so it was like if the baby was nursing and the kids were playing in the room, I would just open it up and read a couple pages, and we didn't pace ourselves really. We just kind of read it when we could, and I made it through like maybe a third of the book, and I really liked it. I liked that it was just like a read aloud, and it read really easily, and I could probably do a comparison post if you'd like me to do that. I'm happy to go into more detail, but more or less I was just gonna keep on finishing America's Story 1 this year, and then I ran into the whole like fear of missing out when I saw how beautiful the inside of Gather Round is, and I just wanted to try it. And so I'm glad that we did, because we have enjoyed it. I was worried about too much busy work for us in my brain, because we did really well with Beautiful Feet books read alouds. We did really, which was no worksheets. We didn't do any worksheets for that. We did really well with Masterbooks, just me reading from the couch, America's Story 1, and talking about it orally, asking questions. And then I was worried that, okay, we're already doing other stuff in our homeschool. This year we have third grader, second grader, kindergartner, and a 1-year-old. And so I thought, am I just adding more work? I'm not sure that we're going to do all the worksheets. I know that we won't do all the worksheets that it comes with in the student packs, and that is because we're doing other stuff in other subjects. We are handwriting in other ways. We are doing spelling in other ways. I don't care if my kids want to cut out something and tape it in the right spot. Like, we can just talk about it, and if that is what they want to do, that's fine with me. If they want to write a bullet point about what they learned today, that's great, but I really don't care if they just tell it back to me, because we're getting handwriting in other ways. If we weren't, then yes, I would definitely want them to do some more of, like, do all the worksheets basically. But the reason why I will still print out the student worksheets instead of just reading the teacher's guide is because one, they really do like the coloring. Each day you have a little coloring page, and they can do that while I read, and they do enjoy that. And then also there are questions along the way in their books that it would have me ask them or have them fill out and answer. And we do that usually orally. Sometimes we'll write that down. What we found works well, I should say, is I give them their notebooks and they flip open to the day we're on. I read from the teacher's guide, which oftentimes leads down rabbit holes, questions. We do have a lot of interruptions, just with like, you know, baby or somebody starts whistling or I don't know, anything. While I'm reading, they'll do the coloring, and then when I'm done, I'll say, okay, fill in what you can of your worksheet. And if they say, do I have to do this part? And I'll look at it and say yes or no, depending on what it is. That has been working well, and so I think I will just continue doing that. I had considered totally just axing their student books and just doing the read aloud from the couch like we did with Masterbooks, because that worked well. And I think they kind of like having something to do with their hand. What they didn't really like, you'll notice, is they didn't really like the, you know, cut this from the back of the book and paste it in here. They just didn't really like that. And so if you have a hands-on kid that likes that, maybe that'll be their favorite part. I don't know. One other thing I wanted to say too was the digital resources. You could totally miss this if you just didn't know it existed. But there are, on Gather Around's website, you can go to like digital resources, and then you can find the unit. So US History 1, there will be like YouTube links and extras links and things like that for, you know, things that you can watch on YouTube basically. But there is a big list, and actually all of their units have that. So I would just go check it out and see if it's something that would be worth your time. Let's go ahead and take a look inside, and I want to just show you like what comes in the teacher's guide and the student books and how the pages correlate, and then give you an idea of like what a day would look like. If you have any questions, leave them for me in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more homeschool videos. This will be the page that shows you what you'll be learning for the subject of history, if you need that for like your homeschool records. This is what you will be learning about from the Bible, and social studies topics, geography topics, and science topics. One of the things that I did not use at all this month, and I think this is just kind of a shame because these books are like a gold mine. And part of the reason that we loved using, say, Beautiful Feet books was just the read alouds. But look at this huge list that they give you of all of these books that you can get from the library to do as read alouds. What you'll see here in the table of contents is 20 lessons. So we are going to start out with an overview of Indigenous Americans, and then at the end, we're going to make it as far as the French and Indian War. And then in the very back, there'll be reference maps and an optional timeline. US History 2 would then piggyback off of this and go from here to their next chunk. And then there, like I said, are 6 units with 20 lessons in each. There are references to the Bible, but it all is through the lens of the Bible and how people should treat each other and how God sees people versus, you know, just facts of history. Like it's, which I really appreciate, because sometimes it's hard to know how to talk about things that are, you know, evil in our past. And I think they do a really good job in Gather Around just, you know, talking about sin and how greed and different things, you know, come into play into history. It's really neat how they weave that in. So what we would do is I would basically read this to the kids. There would usually be interruptions between each paragraph. I could choose to read or add anything in that I see here or skip it. I would make that judgment call each day based on, you know, how are we doing focus wise? Would this be over our heads? Now, a lot of times the maps that are in my teacher's guide are not in their daily lesson. And so oftentimes if they were doing their student lessons later and like needing to draw in something or label something, then I would let them come look at my teacher's guide map. And you can see there's quite a bit of reading. So how did Indigenous Americans first arrive? Activity break. I oftentimes, for the sake of time, think something like this just doesn't make sense. Like with recall a time when you went on an amazing vacation, or perhaps share the epic tale of one of your little brother's countless injuries. Based on what you experienced, can you imagine how the indigenous Americans would have felt sitting around a fire and recalling the tales of their people? So what it's trying to have you do here is learn, like, this is how they pass down information orally, and to get that feel. But this would just get us so off topic to do this, and like we just, I have to sometimes say, I gotta cut that out. I found that different days, depending on the day, had more or less reading, and sometimes we just really couldn't get through it all. And so what we would end up doing is either, I would kind of like look through and see, okay, I wanna read this for sure, or we would chunk it up and do, a little bit less each day. Because it honestly, just for this example, like of lesson 4, honestly, this is just too much for me to read through all of this in one sitting. Like, my kids are done. And so I would say I could probably, if I have something like this, I could get through this, and then we'd probably need a little break. Maybe come back and do a little bit more reading, or say while they're eating lunch, I could read some more, but or over the course of 2 days. And not every lesson was like too long, but some of them were just too long. Say you have a high schooler and you have a second grader, which we don't, but you would be reading this exact same thing to all of the kids, and then they would be doing different activities and different writing assignments and research assignments based on their level. And so some of the writing in here, it is going to be language and explanations that are, over some of the little kids' heads probably. It will be a little bit more reading than the little kids are used to listening to. So just keeping that in mind, you might have to chunk this up a little bit. But like, for instance, this day, day 5, talking about Leif Erikson, we could totally make it through all the way 3 pages. We did that just fine. And we talked along the way, and they were coloring, and it was no big deal. There's mapping. I love the little extras they have in there, like, you should know a compass rose can be found on every map. It was used by sailors to help them know the direction. There's a lot of just cool little things that you could read to them. Another thing I was going to say that's nice is your teacher notebook has the answers to the questions in the student book. So I don't know, but if you're like me and the kids get asked a question about what date did this happen, or when did this happen, and you're like, oh man, I didn't even remember that. The answer is in your teacher notebook at the end of the lesson. So here's an example after lesson 8 of all of the narration questions for each kid. So early elementary, questions 1 through 7 they answer. And then my early reader would have questions 1 through 6 in her workbook. And we would probably do these orally, honestly, instead of any writing, but the answers are all here. It's a really beautifully done, easy to read curriculum, I would say. I want to show you really quick what the inside of their workbooks look like. So we have early reader, early elementary. So for lesson 2, we read this from the teacher's guide. So my early reader had some pages that were in the back that she cut out and taped on to this map here. And I kind of had encouraged her to do that, but as the days went on, if she didn't want to do like some of the cut out and paste type stuff, then we just pointed to and talked about it and labeled it like verbally. We also had a little bit of writing, you can see there. Oral narrative tradition, tell your parent a story, like the indigenous people did. So that would require me listening to her. And then she colored this while I read. So that was her assignment, and then this would be the next day. She had coloring while I read, and then circling some items grown for food by the indigenous Americans and what I learned. Let's go look at the early elementary version of this lesson too. What you see here is writing, and then you also see labeling where he has to write in some stuff, and she didn't have to write that in. And then same thing here, tell me a story. He chose not to color, that was fine. And then he had to label with his handwriting the different parts on the map versus cutting and pasting. So that's kind of the main difference I've noticed between the two versions, is there's just going to be more handwriting in the early elementary and more like circle this or copy and cut and paste type of stuff in the younger early reader. Then for his day 3 or lesson 3, similar to her, instead of circling, he had to write in the foods. And these were very similar too. The next day, he felt like coloring, got to read and memorize this short little poem here, and then he labeled the ships and labeled the different areas we were talking about. On this day 6, she colored the picture, drew, and it says, draw, write, or dictate about an adventure that you have had. And so she wanted to draw this picture, and that was fine. I don't think that skipping that particular activity would decrease our history experience or knowledge. I think it's kind of like, sure, it's a little busy worky, but she didn't mind doing it. But if she didn't want to do that, I would be fine with that. Here's another example of lesson 8. She had to color the map. He had to label the map. Then we didn't write this down. I just chose to, we just looked up the names, the meaning of their names, and that was really fun. They liked that. Both of them have questions, so I just orally asked these questions to them, and the answers were in my teacher's guide. So you get the idea. Because we're just doing this for history, I wasn't really that concerned that they complete a lot of the notebooking pages. And I mainly wanted them to listen, to engage, to repeat what they knew, to be able to do some geography and mapping skills. And then you can see in the back, these were the things we didn't cut out and paste. This is even in the early elementary guide. So we kind of skipped this type of stuff and just did it orally. So I hope that helps you to see what the gather round history looks like and what a day would be like. I think we probably spent about 30 minutes together when we would do this, and then, you know, they would go as fast or as slow as they wanted to individually. But overall, I really enjoyed it. We will be using the next level. If you wanted to not print off the teacher's guide, there are some families who like project this onto their TV, and I do not know how they do that, but there's some kind of device that you can put it from your computer up on the TV, and that would be a way that your kids could still see all the maps in your teacher's guide and all of the things that you're reading from, but not have to print out this big teacher's guide. How I might do it in the future is I might just, instead of binding the kids' books together, I might actually just print out what I want for the week and stick it in their weekly binders. I think that would be a little bit simpler so that all of our stuff could be in one spot, because these don't fit in their binders. But this worked well for this month. Let me know if you have any questions and I'd be happy to answer.